All right, good morning, folks. Everything new on the sun. It's October 17th, 2019. I want to take a look at the day's news from the standpoint of Luke 21. Now, this is a passage that we often come across. But as we see things converging, really the headlines are detailing, spelling out the verses in Luke 21 as it relates to what the end of days will look like. If we were to look at these passages and say, what would the news look like at this point in time when these things were happening, I think we have a good example of it from the articles that I have today. So Luke 21, and the passage says, speaking about the destruction of the temple and what would come after that, and they asked him, saying, Master, but when shall these things be, and what sign will there be when these things come to pass? And he said, Take heed that ye be not deceived, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and the time draweth near. Go ye not after them, but when ye shall hear of wars, rumors of wars, be not terrified, for these things must first come to pass. What do we see happening if this passage is applied to the end of days? Well, we see trouble in Syria. We see trouble in the Middle East. Wars, rumors of wars. Is Turkey going to invade? Is Turkey not? Is Iran going to do a preemptive strike on Israel? Is Israel going to do a preemptive strike on Iran? Wars, rumors of wars. These things must first come to pass, but the end is not yet. So we expect these things to build up, not only to have rumors of wars, but actually wars, and that's what's happening with Israel. Israel is really actively warring against Iran in Syria. So this is an ongoing situation. Listen to this, though. Then he said unto them, Nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, the Persian kingdom against Israel, and great earthquakes shall be in diverse places. What's next? Well, famines and pestilences and fearful sights and great signs shall there be from heaven. So the fearful signs from heaven, I think these are the key ones that illustrate to us that this has not happened. This didn't happen 2,000 years ago at the destruction of the Second Temple. This is yet to come. Some great famines, great pestilences, which have happened throughout history. But when you put all these things together, earthquakes, famines, pestilences, fearful sights, great signs, when you put all these things together, that spells out that we're in the last days, and that's yet to come. But before all these things, it says, so it gives us a timeline. We're not going to see these things until they lay hands on us. Look at this. And this is going to be the trouble that's coming. They shall lay hands on you and persecute you, delivering you up to the synagogues, to the churches, to the prisons, before judges, brought before kings and rulers for my name's sake, and it shall turn to you for a testimony. What is the purpose of all this? Well, we can use it as a testimony to say, you know what? The Bible told that these things were going to happen before they happened, and while they're happening, we can then say, well, the Bible said these things beforehand. So it says, for I will give you a mouth and wisdom. God's going to give us the words at that time when these things start happening so that we can be a good witness to others for Christ. And so this is what's going to come. And when ye shall see Jerusalem encompassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Do we see armies surrounding Israel? Pretty much on all Israel's borders, there's terrorist, hostile nations and armies built up, and certainly in Syria, a significant army built up of a Syrian army, Russian forces, Iranian forces. Now Turkey is there in strong force, creating a quote-unquote buffer zone in the north of Syria. So this is a big deal. So what does the news say? Well, I think economic collapse is coming. And out of that will come famine. A part and parcel of that will be famine. If it wasn't due to the weather, look at this. Due to weather, Midwest farmers fear widespread crop failures and record low harvest in 2019. What does that mean? Very high food prices in 2020 before the next harvest is ready. So look for an economic collapse. If it were to happen, if this Bible prophecy is to be fulfilled, prior to the next harvest. So record low harvest in 2019. We're still eating our reserves. And so a famine could come out of this. And if it was only this, that wouldn't be a big deal. We could purchase food from other, countries that didn't have this famine. So they had a big snowstorm. It blanketed the Midwest. This caused even more trouble with the late harvest that was already occurring because of all the flooding in the Midwest. So on top of this, you also have this. Look at this from CNS News. Federal debt up 1.2 trillion in fiscal year 2019. Remember, I was talking about the debt. The debt is now up to, what is it, 23 trillion? Does this actually say the actual debt we're at now? 23 trillion dollars in debt that the U.S. has alone, let alone the rest of the world. So in terms of famine, you also have the world set up for economic collapse, and this must come before the Antichrist figure is able to put together a world government and a world monetary system. The U.S. must be pulled back. The U.S. must disappear from being a superpower nation or have all its power removed. And many say that it's going to be caused by the rapture event, which guts the U.S. from all Christians. But you don't even necessarily need that. What you have is a president who is pulling out of the Middle East, who is continuing to spend money and could push. I mean, he inherited it from many presidents before him, but he could push it into economic collapse, and he would, just at a coincidence, would be the one you'd want there when there was a monetary reevaluation, a debt reevaluation. Nonetheless, the debt in the U.S. is massive, and the words of Luke 21 will be fulfilled, and all the events are converging right now. Massive debt, even more. It's going up more than $1 trillion per year at this point. Is it sustainable? No, absolutely not. You have the famines in the Midwest. All these, interestingly, are poised to take out the United States, not other countries. Look at that. The U.S. itself is the one under the gun of all these apparent pressures. Now, other countries will be affected strongly, but the world's superpower seems to be the most affected, with the most debt, with the famines and the pestilences that will come after that, etc. So this is a big deal. So I think this is a good indication that we are in that last days, that the events of Luke 21 are coming upon us, when there's going to be famines, pestilences, fearful sights and great signs. That's yet to come. But before that, before these things actually come down the pipe, there's going to be, we're going to be being put in prison. You're going to be put in prison for hate speech. The Christians are going to be put in prison for bigotry and hate speech against all things that are right, all things that are true, biblically speaking. This is coming down the pipe. Israel. In the last days, here's the latest election news, and I'm going to try and keep this video short, but unity government breakthrough possible with Gantz eyeing compromise. A source very close to Gantz denied the quote to the Jerusalem Post, but said they are ready for compromises to prevent third election. So there's looking for compromise. Apparently Gantz is maybe going to be able to join the Likud with Netanyahu in power, since Netanyahu's not going anywhere. So is there going to be a prime minister sharing agreement, a rotational leadership agreement? How does this all play out? How does it play out with the 70 shepherds of Israel and Netanyahu apparently being the last prime minister prior to the return of the Messiah? We don't know how it's going to go, but this is the latest news. And Gantz apparently is expressing willingness to negotiate based on Rivlin's proposal, according to media reports. But Gantz would want to be prime minister and not vice prime minister, while Netanyahu is suspended from premiership, assuming he is indicted. So assuming the courts indict him and follow through with that, Gantz wants to, again, I guess he's saying, Netanyahu can't be in power, and that Gantz wants to take power. I don't think this is going to happen, because if the prophecy of the 70 shepherds of Israel is true at all, then it indicates that somehow Netanyahu will come out again. And there's prophecies by Rabbi Kaduri that say a third election indeed will be held. And Netanyahu may continue to stay in power incredibly, almost miraculously, through all these events. So it's yet to be seen. There is still no election in Israel, incredibly. And these things motor on, and Netanyahu is still effectively prime minister. And the prophecy of the 70 shepherds state that he will be the last prime minister before the return of the Messiah in Israel. So these are the things happening on the world stage in prophecy. It's ominous, to say the least. Is it going to happen immediately? These things show us that, this can't go on forever. This can't go on for another 10 years. These things have to come to pass. There's a shelf life. I think it's J.D. Farag that always says these prophecies have shelf lives. This doesn't go on for another 15 years without something happening. Maybe the Middle East could, but you put on top of it the economic troubles, the famines that are lined up and coming towards us. All these things indicate that the time is short now. I think the 7-year tribulation period starts in or around the year 2021, which means 2020, hold on to your hats, is going to be an incredible year. I think we're just at the tipping point here, and we're going to see a bit more debt. We're going to see a bit more famine, etc. And it doesn't make sense that we get through 2020 with a good harvest at this point. I suggest to you that there'll either be another disaster to cause even more famine, or the economic collapse comes, in the next 6 months before the next harvest is ready, something like that. That's what I would think is happening right now. So it's an interesting situation. I watched the Prophecy Watchers Weekend, I think it's called. Let me see. This is the Watchers Weekend 2019, and this was a series that was put together by Gary and Bob from... let me see. What was it? Prophecy. What is it? Prophecy Today. I always forget the names. Anyways, Bob Ulrich and Gary Stearman, and they put on this prophecy conference. And so I listened to the whole series. I don't know if you watched it. It's 15 hours of talks. You can see all the headlines here. They talked about UFOs and the Antichrist, etc. I thought it was interesting. It was $50 Canadian for, so what is that, $35 US? There you go, $39.95 US to watch all these videos. Bill Koenig, Tom Hughes, Jeff Kinley. It's interesting. Billy Crone spoke. Interesting, but if you're following this channel, you won't have heard a lot more about Bible prophecy, and even less in some cases in terms of current world news. But nonetheless, it's interesting. L.A. Marzulli was one of the speakers. If you're interested in Bible prophecy and you want to hear what some of the other big minds in Bible prophecy are saying about these current times, check out on Vimeo, vimeo.com, Watchers Weekend 2019. You can subscribe and watch all the videos there. 15 hours of speaking, of speakers on that. So pretty interesting stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for supporting. I know I haven't had a lot of time recently. I've had a lot of family over, Thanksgiving, etc. Again, I'm off tomorrow and Monday, so I'm looking after our kids as my wife is gone for the weekend at a wedding. So it's going to be hit and miss in terms of what times I can dedicate to creating a video, but hopefully I'll have a full video again tomorrow with a full update on what's happening in the world. But current world news continues to happen. We have the Canadian elections coming up, and really it's a battle between the left and the right, the conservatives, the Christians, and the liberals who want to push their agenda forward. And it's an obvious battle on the political stage. It's not even about climate change at this point. It's almost basically between conservatives and liberals in the real definition of the word, similar to in the United States, where it's really a battle between the more conservative Republicans and the much more liberal Democrats. And so this is an ongoing situation. Of course, you have the same situation in the U.S. They're trying to take Trump out, and our elections are coming out in was it 2020 elections for Trump? And so these are battles of kings and kingdoms and political systems. And the Bible says that the world will move towards a more liberal society. And this is why Christians are getting put in jail in the last days, because they've moved away from any sort of Christian base foundation, and they're moving to liberalism. And Christians are called haters. Christians are called bigoted. Christians will go to jail for hate speech in the near future. And to speed things along, I'm coming on board with the idea that, the rapture would be an incredible event really, if it removed all the Christians. How fast would the world devolve into complete liberal socialist politics, and move into such an evil world as the Bible suggests is coming upon us. So interesting. Again, about how the rapture could gut the United States and gut the rest of the world, and really allow Satan and his evil minions and his evil plan to proceed at record high speed rates and really be implemented very, very fast. If all the Christians were removed, how fast would the world move into what the Bible describes as happening in the last days? That could be the key piece to it. It could be a pre-tribulation rapture. I'm not saying it isn't. At this time, I kind of think it's mid-trib. But if it was pre-trib, that certainly would explain a lot of stuff. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll leave it there and try and get the regular videos up tomorrow. But incredible things happening. Look up for your redemption draws nigh, and we are in it. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but I think we're getting very, very close to where these things really start escalating, increasing in velocity. And now is the time to be prepared. Now is the time to know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, because he's coming back soon. And once he comes back, remember, the books will be closed, as we spoke of in relation to the Jewish festivals and feasts. The book of the living and the book of the dead will be closed. You will not any longer have an opportunity to choose. And so you want to choose Christ, choose the free gift of salvation prior to the closing of the books. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next video.